It's only been a couple of weeks since Glitch Productions took us all by surprise by revealing Glitch Presents. And on top of that, they are working together with Tracy Butler and Iron Circus to make a full 6-episode season of Lackadaisy. This is huge. This is incredible within the world of indie animation. And honestly, I have not seen enough people talk about why this is. This is monumental. This is a huge shift, not just in indie animation, but in the entire animation and storytelling industry as a whole. And so, since no one else really seems to be talking about it, I am going to step into this quagmire and I am going to deliver why this is so monumental, why we need to take note of this, and what we as novice creators ourselves can take away from it. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors, because writing is an adventure, it's way more fun with friends, so come along with me as we dive into the economics and logistics and contracts that have led to Lackadaisy being made under the Glitch banner. So first off, why is a channel about writing, one done by novice authors no less, talking about, well, the logistics, the business, the money, the finances, the contracts behind indie animation? Well, there's a few reasons why. First of all, despite the fact that this is in another corner of the storytelling industry, there are loads of valuable lessons and insights that authors can get from this. But also on top of that, because as I said, not enough people are really diving into the mechanics of how this came about and what this all means. And there are so many people who follow us here who have aspirations of being animators, of being showrunners, storytellers, writers, storyboarders, and the likes, who I think that they would really want to know what's going on here and how this might change the game for them. Another big reason is because too many YouTube pundits out there who love to dive into the minutia of Hollywood have completely written off indie animation, and especially what Glitch is doing. They say this is stupid, it's not profitable, no one really cares, this doesn't have a cultural impact, no one should really be paying any attention to this, and they've turned a blind eye. There's loads of other weird cultural and personal reasons why so many of them have, but like 2 years ago, I really tried to reach out to other YouTubers and be like, guys, there is something big happening with murder drones, and when the Amazing Digital Circus dropped, I'm like, this is huge, people should pick this up, but no one did. And so because all of those pundits aren't saying anything, and these are the guys that have the know-how, who have the contacts, the insights, the experience into the business of film and show making, since they're not talking about it, well, someone's got to do it. Because within these numbers, we can show that indie animation is more relevant than ever before, and it is making an impact that Hollywood cannot ignore. And on top of that, what Luke and Kevin are doing now with their expanding team, including Olin Rogers and Tracy Butler, what they are doing could completely revolutionize the role that indie animation plays in the larger industry. So if you really want to keep ahead of the culture curve, yeah, you need to pay attention to what indie animation is doing and stop whining and complaining if you see things that are quote-unquote woke in it. Finally, one of the big reasons why I did want to come back and talk about this subject is because when I was doing my live stream talking about how incredible this announcement was, there were people who had some legitimate concerns about, well, what does this now mean? Does this mean that a really great show is behind a paywall and I won't be able to watch it? And those are some very fair concerns, and it's a very nuanced answer, and I hope to explain why this is really important, what is going on, but at the same time show some sympathy to people who might not be able to access Lackadaisy when it releases, and what some options are that you might be able to employ in order to enjoy it whenever it is eventually released. So, with all of that waffle now out of the way, let's dive into what on earth is going on, why this is so big, and this will then lead us into the numbers, into the economics, and into the business side of what led to this amazing step forward for indie animation. So again, 2 weeks ago, Kevin and Luke announced that they were partnering with Tracy Butler and Lackadaisy to make this glorious show about kitties running alcohol during Prohibition into a sweet reality. Now, we need to first acknowledge that Tracy Butler and her team released on their own steam a pilot episode for Lackadaisy, as well as an incredible Kickstarter, which earned them over $2 million to make this show happen. And based off of what we were told during the announcement, that they had planned 5 10-minute episodes to tell a full and complete season. Something that I need to immediately point out here is that all of that $2 million was absolutely worth it. Not just in the little reveal that we got and just this amazing catchy tune and the gorgeous animation, but let me already start breaking down some numbers for you. Within the animation industry, your typical budget for any one episode runs anywhere from $300,000 to $1 million per episode. Depending on the studio and how much effort they want to put into it, the number can go well beyond 1 million. But the standard, as far as anyone's been able to figure, you're looking at $1 million per episode for any animated show that Hollywood makes. If they make it for less than $1 million, it usually indicates very, very low quality. However, what Glitch has done in the past, and what they are still currently do, is that they go for kind of that lower line. And not that they're trying to cheat their workers, not at all, but as an indie company which doesn't have to worry about as much spending as a Hollywood company would, all of their contracts and the likes, they can afford to go for that lower number. If they went for the $1 million budget, they would never have gotten beyond murder drones, let me just tell you. But with Lackadaisy, with $2 million going into 50 minutes worth of animation, and a typical animated episode runs anywhere between 22 to 25 minutes, that means that effectively Tracy Butler and her team were putting $1 million worth of effort and investment into effectively an episode of Lackadaisy each. That is amazing. For an indie project to be able to invest $1 million into an episode is nearly unheard of. And again, coming around to Glitch or even Spindlehorse, they actually tend to spend less money per episode because, again, they are not laboring under the umbrella of Hollywood, which demands all of these other things that you have to pay for in order to make any episode happen. They can focus primarily on the storytelling and on the animation and make it look great. So that is the kind of effort, the kind of investment that Iron Circus was putting in without the oversight, so that those $2 million go a very long way to create just gorgeous animation. I mean, just look at it here on the screen. This is incredible. And not to knock Knights of Guinevere, which is another great show, but you can tell the difference. You can tell the fluidity that Lackadaisy can capture that Knights of Guinevere couldn't, because Lackadaisy has the bigger budget. However, $2 million can only take you so far if you're going to put in that much investment and effort and quality into each episode. In order to create a 6-episode season, complete, so full 25-minute episodes, that means that Tracy Butler would need at least $6 million in order for this to work. Yikes! She didn't earn anywhere near that much. $2 million is already amazing. She could do so much with $2 million. That was the plan. But Glitch stepped in and said, we want to see you make a full first season and have a chance for Lackadaisy to really take off. So in order for that to happen, we want to partner with you. Now then, because we're also just an indie company and we do not have $6 million lying around, we can only contribute so much money to you. But we can ensure through our own connections and through other people that we know that you can have a chance to get that full $6 million funding at minimum, and not only just show it on YouTube, but you might even have the chance to go toe-to-toe with Hollywood and stream. And not only that, we can all walk away with a nice profit. So enter the contract, at least as far as I can tell. I'll be honest, I am not claiming any insights into what's happening behind the scenes with Lackadaisy, with Glitch Presents, with Olin Rogers, with Tracy Butler, Kevin and Luke, and whoever the Hollywood studio is that they've partnered with in order to make this show happen. I do not have that kind of insight, but I do have experience with contracts in the publishing world, and I've also followed the drama behind the scenes of contracts with multiple shows and movies in Hollywood, and I believe what's going on here is that you have a three-way split of responsibility and payoff. Let me explain. Tracy Butler and Iron Circus can bring $2 million to the table to get you 2 full episodes animated at a high $1 million quality, which is again the Hollywood standard. Indie animation working at Hollywood levels? That is insane. And then Glitch can step in, and I believe that they also said, here's another $2 million for another 2 episodes, and we have a stake in this show. Now, unnamed Hollywood studio, if you put in your $2 million, you also get a stake and a claim. Now, what we learned from the announcement is that Tracy Butler gets to retain her entire original team. None of them will be replaced. And on top of that, she retains entire creative control. This is, again, insane. We haven't seen anything like this outside of The Amazing Digital Circus and the deal with Netflix. Not even VisiPop got that kind of control with Has-Been Hotel and working together with Amazon and Studio A24. So this got me thinking, okay, how exactly are you going to do this? And the key lies in the fact that Glitch had already claimed early on access to the Lackadaisy merch. And Glitch is able to make the bulk of their money to keep their project running with the merchandise sales that they make. And this was even explained in the announcement, that they see their business model as merchandise driven. So because Glitch has a claim to the merchandise for Lackadaisy, or at least the selling of the merch, what very likely happened is this, is that there's a 3-way split of property rights. Tracy Butler gets full creative control. No one can tell her no. Or I mean, they can tell her no. There are producers involved, but Tracy Butler can just take those notes, crumple them up, and throw them away. She's got creative control. Glitch maintains control over the merchandising arm of the whole operation. So what is the third responsibility, or the third bit of profit that then the Hollywood studio can cash in on? It is exclusive streaming rights. So already, this is really genius. This proposed contract, as best as we can figure right here, that Tracy Butler gets full creative control. She's able to pay herself and her workers. That is awesome. The full $6 million going to good use. Hallelujah, you'll love to see it. Glitch maintains control over the merchandising arm and allows them to recoup their investments, as well as make sure that a very wide audience has direct access to this merchandise and is able to keep Lackadaisy afloat and maybe even set it up for a second season. Meanwhile, the Hollywood studio that then would get exclusive streaming rights basically gets a high quality show for a fraction of what they would have to normally invest. For $2 million, they get a $6+ million show. That is insane. And they get to then bank on the combined audience of Lackadaisy and Glitch Productions that will hopefully come on over to their streaming service, adding in more revenue for them. So this is great. Hallelujah. It seems like everyone is in a win-win situation, which for indie animation is huge. And this sets a precedent by which in the future, if Lackadaisy does really well when it releases, if it brings in loads of numbers and it brings in loads of profit for everyone involved, this means that in the future, as animation is already again becoming more and more popular with younger generations and has always remained popular with older generations as well, people just don't like to talk about it because they're weird that way. They don't like to admit that they like something that is quote-unquote kiddish. It's not. Animation is for everyone, but that long rant and discussion production aside, there is this wonderful opportunity for indie animation, just as Has Been Hotel has done, to make a big splash. But not only make a big splash on whatever streaming platform it goes to, but do it in such a way where the responsibility and the profits are so beautifully shared between 3 different parties, allowing, again, for everyone to have a good slice of the pie and feel like a winner. And most importantly, I would argue, to preserve the vision and creative freedom of the showrunners, in this instance, Tracy Butler. If Lackadaisy does well, this precedent will allow for other indie creators to come onto the scene, cut similar deals, and studios will be able to get cheaper, high-quality animation for their buck, and it will empower even more creators to tell their stories the way they want to tell them. This is huge. Basically, get the support from a big Hollywood studio, but without the big Hollywood studio interference. Again, if Lackadaisy succeeds in this, this could change everything. This is the big change that 2 years ago I said, something's going to happen. In this decade, we're going to see indie animation make a huge advance forward into a realm that Hollywood is not ready for, that we're not ready for. And 2 years ago, I would not have believed something like this could happen, and it's happening right now. Awesome! But of course, let's address the concerns that people have that this show will end up behind a paywall. Well, that's unfortunately the price that you have to pay in order to have the access to the resources and the money of a large production studio. This is effectively what happens in the realm of publishing. When you work with a publisher, you gain access to all of their vast resources to make your project succeed, and that's a good thing. But that means that you have to play by their rules, and they're the ones who get exclusive rights to the publishing of your story. So you can't go and work with other partners and broaden your horizons. You're locked in. The same thing is true with these shows. And that does make it difficult, especially when there is a paywall involved. YouTube is free, and it makes it far more accessible for so many people. Now, Kevin and Luke didn't say that it was guaranteed that it would be stuck behind a paywall, but that's what it could happen. Because of their contract with Netflix and with the Amazing Digital Circus, that means again that there is a precedent for a show to be simulcast, or maybe to first go on to this streaming platform and then eventually to be released on YouTube, or maybe first released on YouTube and then released on streaming, who knows. But the streaming service will want the biggest bang for their buck, which likely means that it's going to go behind a paywall. If you wish to get around certain restrictions, especially geo restrictions, this is where you're going to have to employ a VPN. Or you're going to have to watch reactions on YouTube, which in my opinion are insanely annoying, and I don't particularly like that. I like to be able to watch a show in the quiet of my own room, or with my own rowdy family, or with my friends, however it is that I want to do it, without some other voice just blabbing away while I'm trying to enjoy crazy cats shooting at each other over a few bottles of alcohol. So while I can't say that there's going to be an easy solution for the people who are YouTube only, what I can say is that there will be options and opportunities eventually down the line, if it is behind a paywall, for everyone to have the chance to see it. And if you're able to invest again in a VPN or invest in a subscription, even if just for a short time, I feel like it's an investment well made, especially for Lackadaisy. And I say that as someone who was a part of the initial Kickstarter. I mean, I've got the comic books, the official comic books that came with the Kickstarter, and I've been following this since the very beginning. And I do applaud this move because I want to see a full season. And if working with a production studio, especially with such a generous contract, is what makes it happen, then I am willing to support it. And I am absolutely a-okay with it. Because again, this is a calculated risk on the part of Glitch Productions, Tracy Butler, and I also need to include in this Olin Rogers. Because if this works out, if Lackadaisy does well on whatever streaming service it goes to, it makes a real splash, makes a real name for itself out there in the big world and not just here on YouTube, that will mean that a true precedent is set. Meaning that because this thing has happened, it can then pave the way for others to do the same and to allow for other indie creators to partner with other indie studios like Glitch Productions or with smaller production companies and still retain their creative freedom, by sharing the responsibility, sharing the profits, and thereby being able to make their stories a reality. This, I really feel, is a good way forward for many indie creators, especially the bigger ones. And as Luke and Kevin say, as indie rises, it's like the sea. It raises all the other boats as well, providing opportunities and recognition that the smaller guys and gals might not be able to get on their own, and really helps them move forward. And that's so incredibly important. Now, for a big lesson, a big takeaway from all of this, for really all creators, is just how important the money is. And that's one of the big unfortunate things, because almost none of us are walking around with $2 million that we can just drop. And being able to get to the point where Tracy Butler was able to get $2 million worth of donations from her fans, that took years of work. And just to kind of give an example, if I wanted to make just one animated episode at the lower end of the production scale, which is $300,000, back when I was a teacher, I would have to have worked and saved for 24 years on a teacher's salary in order to pay the entire cost of a $300,000 production for a 125-minute episode. So, yikes. Lots of work goes into just making any sort of animation work out. A lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of investment in manpower and of effort and of skill. Funny enough, though, as a little aside, animation is actually cheaper than live action. So I just want to put this to rest right here, that animation doesn't work in Hollywood because it's too expensive. No. It is expensive. $1 million minimum by Hollywood standards for each episode. That is a lot of money. But at the same time, they're normally paying $5 to $10 million per episode, or they're looking at like a $60 million budget for like a 12 episode season of live action. And yeah, you do not have to worry about that with most animation budgets. So yeah, let's just put that to rest. But the thing is, it's still expensive, and the current Hollywood model, which is scrapbooking, meaning that they just take a whole bunch of ideas and notes from the producers, and they just kind of cobble it all together, and it's constant editing of trying to get 12 or more ideas to all work into one coherent story. That's a mess, and that means constantly reworking the same thing over and over again, which would drive up the cost of animation, tie up the animation studio, and mean that you are never going to get the return of your investment on an animated project, even though it is technically cheaper than live action. So, coming back to it, even if animation is cheaper than live action, the point of the matter is it's still stinking expensive for most people. So how on earth are you going to make this happen if you have aspirations as a creator? The best way forward for this is just start getting your work out there. Drum up excitement. Introduce people to your creations. Already start working on your own skill as a storyteller and as an animator, and put it out there. As you get recognition, you'll be able to connect with people who might be able to help you out, to lend you their skill, or that you can hire, or might be able to help you get your name out there so that way you can start your own little Kickstarter. Start small, grow big. It takes some time. So again, make a name for yourself first, and then the monies will start coming to you, hopefully. It doesn't always work for everyone. Not everyone succeeds at this, I know. But I have learned in my own journey as an author, as someone who has already published 11 books under his own name. And I'll tell you this, it's an investment even for self-publishing. I have invested thousands of dollars into making these books happen, and I have not made that money back. But I can tell you this, the journey has been absolutely worth it. I've improved as a storyteller. I've been able to make this YouTube channel grow. I've had the chance to sell my books, even if just to a handful of people, and see their faces light up as they begin to read these stories and are taken somewhere else. It is amazing. The journey of being a storyteller is worth its weight in far more than gold. It is absolutely worth it. So even if you never make it to glitch levels, that's okay. The journey is worth it because you need your stories need you, and even if you're never as big as Lackadaisy or the Amazing Digital Circus or Has Been Hotel, guess what? The world does need your stories. And as the opportunities and as the doors are opening up all over the place, thanks to these bigger productions pushing forward, who knows? You might just get lucky. You might finally hit that right combination and your story gets out there and you get to live the dream. But you can't do that unless you are preparing yourself right now and putting in the work right now, saving up, working, continuing with your skills, making connections. I believe in you. You can make this happen. Now, let me stick it to the pundits here on YouTube who have completely downplayed independent animation. Let me get into the numbers right here, because Glitch Productions slapped down very likely $2 million on the table to make this happen. That's an incredible amount of money. But here's the thing. They didn't just have $2 million lying around. They're an indie production company. They're still small time. And if my supposition of their numbers are correct, this means that they're still working anywhere between $300,000 to $400,000 per episode for any one of their shows. Maybe they can put in a little bit more here and there, especially because the Amazing Digital Circus has been doing so well, but they're not rolling around in Disney levels of money, which again is one of the reasons why so many pundits don't care. If a show doesn't make $100 million, blah, what does it matter? Indie animation sucks. No, it doesn't, because the numbers prove that indie animation is killing it right now, and especially over at Glitch Productions. So let's start getting into the numbers. Now again, by industry standards, you need at least $300,000 to make one full-length animated video, 22 to 25 minutes. And the big number is 1 million, which is what Lackadaisy's doing. But Glitch only recently has really had that kind of money. And their business model is 20% of every episode must be supported by ad revenue. 80% is supported by merchandise sales. So $300,000 minimum for each episode. That means $60,000 need to be made in ad revenue, and then $240,000 needs to be made up in merch. Wow, that is really something. If you're wondering why Knights of Guinevere has not been greenlit yet, despite all the praise it's gotten, it's because it hasn't yet sold $240,000 worth in merch. Once it reaches that number, they can then go ahead and greenlight it according to their model. And here's the thing, knowing that they've been able to greenlight Murder Drones, the Amazing Digital Circus, and the Gaslight District, and they're working their way up to Knights of Guinevere, and they've already put in $300,000 there, that means that this model has been working for them, and that they've been making a stinking load of money off of merch sales, which is really, really good. And this is where they've already disproven the Hollywood and pundit theories, that their main demographic, they're looking at older teenagers all the way up to 30-year-olds. Hollywood and their pundits do not believe that 18 to 30-year-olds spend money on entertainment. I don't know why they think this way. They just believe that it is so. That you have this 12-year gap, a black hole that can never be filled, that can never be satisfied, because these people don't have jobs. They're lazy. They're dumb. They don't know what they want. I have heard all of this and more. They're like, yeah, 18 to 30-year-olds are just stupid, and they just steal from their parents. And I'm like, that's dumb. That's dumb right here, because that's not what I've been seeing. I've been seeing loads of people, from kids, teenagers to adults, all getting their hands on Glitch merch. They've been doing really, really well. So let's dive back into the numbers here. Glitch was able to sustain this model with Murder Drones when they got about 20 million views per video. 1 million views on any YouTube video can earn you between $1,000 to $6,000 in ad revenue, depending on viewer retention and watch rates. How long do they watch your video for? And what I have found in my own experience as a YouTuber is that if you're doing really well, you can very easily make anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 per million views on any given video. $5,000 to $6,000 is when you're doing really well, and because Glitch has been doing really well, I would tend to say, yeah, they're easily making $5,000 to $6,000 per million views for each one of their videos, but let's lowball it with a conservative view of anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 made per million views. So when you get then 20 million views at least $3,000 per million views, congratulations, that's $60,000 right there, not 60 million, $60,000 right there. And the merch sold $240,000 worth. And I know because I helped to contribute to that. I've bought quite a bit of Murder Drones merch in my time. So they made it. Murder Drones did well. It was sustainable. And they made enough here and there on the sides to then invest in the Amazing Digital Circus. And this is where things got wild. Because the Amazing Digital Circus, when I first began looking into the numbers about this stuff 2 years ago, right out of the gate, 175 million views. And again, if you think about, okay, you're making at least $3,000 up to $4,000 worth for every million views, they already blew past the investment for the first episode alone just off of ad revenue. That is absolutely bonkers. And if we go up to the higher end, they were already making enough money, upwards of nearly $700,000. That pays for 2 episodes, for the pilot and for the next episode. All the merch sales are just gravy. That means that that's more money that they can put forward towards their other shows or towards future episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus. Their next episode, Candy Carrier Chaos, well, over time it's received 168 million views, which again, you multiply that to $3,000 to $4,000 per million views, and you're looking at $500,000 to $670,000 just on the ad revenue alone, which again covers up to 2 more episodes without including the merch. Then when we get to the third episode, The Mystery of Mildenhall Manor, even though it doesn't have nearly as impressive of a count, which it now stands at 77 million views, it was more around 60 million after its initial push through. That's still, when you translate all of that over, it's almost enough to completely recuperate the investment into just 1 episode, never minding the merch. And we know that the merchandise has been selling well because of just how popular the Amazing Digital Circus is and just how well the system worked for Murder Drones. This means that hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially even millions, was right there in Glitch's coffers. Now, that doesn't mean that they had it all at once. This comes in over time. And that money, as it's coming in, is being accounted for. They're paying their employees, they're paying their rent, they're paying for their equipment, they're paying people for all of their special advertisements, and they're putting investments into future projects. So that means that they don't have all of this money just lying around. It took time. And we know, going back to what they have said in the announcement, that they had already begun to make this deal back in December. So that means that back in December, they probably did not have the full $2 million all ready to go, but they're like, Lackadaisy, Tracy Butler, we want to lock in on an agreement. We're going to bring in Olin Rogers to help us get integrated into Hollywood, find the right people to work with, and we are going to save up to make this happen. We are going to make your dream first season a reality. And based on the nuance of their dialogue, what they actually shared in the announcement does seem to suggest that, yeah, maybe some loans were taken out, but loans that they can very easily cover, thanks again to just how popular the Amazing Digital Circus has been. Each episode has been able to pay for itself thanks to its ad revenue and its merchandise sales easily, meaning that all the extra money that they made earlier could easily be invested into stuff like the Gaslight District and, as well, Knights of Guinevere. And here's where it gets even crazier, because since that initial 175 million views, they have had another 220 million views on the pilot alone. Meaning, again, when you translate all of that into ad revenue, you're looking at anywhere between $660,000 to $880,000 just on ad revenue alone. That's money that, when you combine it with the merch, easily meets that $2 million threshold that Glitch can just slap down and say, all right, Hollywood studio that is yet to be named and revealed to us, the public, here you have it. $2 million of investment from Iron Circus, Lackadaisy, Tracy Butler, that whole coalition right there. $2 million from Glitch Productions. You ante up your other $2 million. We bring this all together. We make a $6 million project happen. This show is going to be amazing, and we pave the way forward. This right here, these are the numbers. And so when you break it all down, again, these are hundreds of millions of views, and sure, there's plenty of people rewatching, but at the same time, you don't know how many times you plop someone down for just one watch, and maybe there's like 3, 4, 10 people who are all watching that one watch. That is really, really something. Glitch Productions has really shot into a realm of popularity, not just with the Amazing Digital Circus, but with Murder Drones still being very relevant, very popular. Gaslight District and Knights of Guinevere, they have shown that indie animation is beloved by tens of millions, potentially even hundreds of millions of people all over the world who want to see this stuff happen, and is represented in the amount of money that an indie production company has been able to make, that only now, as they want to go big on Lackadaisy and really try to aim for punching through into Hollywood on their terms with full, complete control. This is insane. That kind of money, that kind of popularity, if you were to translate that on over to what a Hollywood studio wishes to have, that effectively means that what Glitch has on their hands with the Amazing Digital Circus is a billion-dollar blockbuster multiple times over. That is the equivalent of what they have, and that all their other projects are strong. Very, very few other studios can even get close to boasting this. Disney is really the only one, and Disney is kind of in the tank right now with everything that's been going on with them. Finally, I just have to say this. I am so happy that Olin Rogers is a part of this project, not only because he's a huge advocate of animation and of indie animation on top of that, but this is his chance at redemption and revenge within Hollywood. His time with Final Space unfortunately really crushed him, as TBS absolutely robbed him of his project and really broke his soul. As someone who's followed Olin and has loved his work now for years, yeah, he wasn't doing so hot, and it looked like Tinseltown had gotten the better of him. He's now returning with an indie project, not his own, but working with other great indie creators, bringing his expertise, his connections, his knowledge of what to do and what not to do, and he gets to come in now as an executive producer that Hollywood cannot touch, and he gets to help call the shots on a contract that gets to save another indie creator and present her with all the creative freedom she needs to bring her vision to life. And that kind of a win that he can put into his own cap gives him power going forward with his current projects and with future projects. So Olin Rogers has not been beaten by Hollywood. This is in part his redemption story. I absolutely love it. So I hope that if you've watched this whole video thus far, that I've made sense of what's going on here. Yeah, this isn't a billion-dollar production. I said it's the equivalent of it, but really, of course, again, the pundits in Hollywood are like, yeah, it's not a billion-dollar show, so why should we care about it? Indie animation really doesn't have that kind of cultural impact or influence. But what we're seeing is that it does. You don't get to this moment without so many fans all over the world loving these projects. Tracy Butler again got $2 million to put into Lackadaisy just from her fans alone. Glitch was able to present at least $2 million in the supposed contract, at least as so far as I've been able to see it and figure it out. And that $2 million comes again from all the hard work that they've been able to put into all these other shows by empowering creators like Gooseworks, Part-Time Seagull, and Liam Vickers to make this happen. This is incredible. This shows that the creatives have it right. That if you let them do what they need to do to tell a good story, it can work. True, it's not always perfect, and there's always a bumpy road to getting it done, but the fact of the matter is that these indie creators are making it, and that now they have the opportunity to tussle with Hollywood and to cooperate with Hollywood to make these projects happen, and again, to just keep pressing this point home because it cannot be overstressed that they get to retain their creative freedom. This is revolutionary. This changes the scene. This changes the dynamic going forward. If Lackadaisy is a success under this contract, this paves the way forward for indie animation and animation as a whole to be revolutionized and to open up so many possibilities to so many creators. Does that mean that everyone will win? Unfortunately not. Does that mean that it's going to be smooth sailing from here on out? No. But windows of opportunity, doors of opportunity are beginning to open. This is an exciting time. This is a very optimistic time to be a creator. I've been seeing so many people lament that this has been the end. It isn't. This is a new beginning. And I know you guys can't see it because I don't have a camera on me right now, but I am like grinning from ear to ear talking about this because this is amazing. And I am so excited to see where we go from this point, because if Tracy Butler can bring the kind of passion that she's already brought to Lackadaisy thus far, the sky is the limit, in my opinion. Only the best can really proceed from this point on. Fingers crossed, best of luck to them. Godspeed to the whole team. I pray you guys do amazing, because I think that really and truly, this is the beginning of a new age for animation and for storytelling, and it only means good things for all of us if they succeed. So, with all of that being said, in this very happy rant, if you'd like to support this indie creator here on YouTube, please check out the books that I've published. I think you will really enjoy some of them. Links for all of them are in the description below. Otherwise, you can subscribe to our channel and learn how to write your own stories. Also get all of our reviews and analyses of other stories and shows out there, and just enjoy the romp with us. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me on this little adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.